Sir, before the House adjourned for lunch yesterday, I had started speaking on the Essential Commodities Amendment Bill. I have got here with me the bill as introduced. In the statement of objects and reasons, the government pointed out that in certain cases it might be necessary for them not to award punishment prescribed in the law as it exists at present but to forfeit a part of the deposit. This relates to minor offences under the Essential Commodities Act. I can quite understand this, and generally therefore nobody would oppose this thing, but the question that I wish to raise in this connection before the House is the manner in which this act is being implemented by the government and also by the state governments. I mention the state governments because here is a measure which is sponsored by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and in regard to many aspects of which I believe the central government has concurrent jurisdiction, but much is left to the states. Our experience has been, especially in the state from which I come, namely West Bengal, that this act is not implemented properly by the state authorities because of various connections of certain people high up with the big business and other indulging in speculation, hoarding and so on. The result has been that whatever should be done had not been done. The central government has got powers under this act to make rules, to give directions to the states, and to supervise the manner in which the particular measure is administered by the states. We found that much that should have been done was not done. What is the use of talking about punishment of the small fry? Certainly, if they are guilty, they have to be punished, and smaller the fry, the minor should be the punishment. I agree there, but the point is that the act is not properly implemented. We should like to know from the government as to how many cases have been started under the Essential Commodities Act. We know that food grains had been hoarded, speculation had been indulged in, stocks and had been removed from one state to another surreptitiously, had been indulged in, stocks had been by unfair and illegal methods. These should have attracted the attention of the Essential Commodities Act. The act was passed in this parliament with a view to putting a check on speculative rise in prices. When I come to the question of practical implementation of this measure, we found that the government had failed. Now government should say something about it. When government seeks to amend an act, it should tell us how as to how the parent act which is proposed to be amended has been implemented. Is it the contention of the government that difficulty arises because this particular provision is not there in the act? Are government in trouble because they do not know how to deal with the smaller fries? Or is it because that those who are supposed to administer this measure at the state level, at the district level, have thought if it fit to ignore it, have thought it fit to bypass it? If any measure of the central government was needed for controlling the price of food grains and ensuring the supply of essential commodities to the community, it is the Essential Commodities Act. I would like the minister to say something on this. I know that he was not here at the time when we passed this measure, nor was he there when the Essential Commodities Act was bypassed by many state governments. In the past, we had drawn the attention of the minister to this problem, and that minister is now happily going to be the president of the Uttar Pradesh Congress Committee. But here I would like to ask the minister who has stepped into his shoes as to what he is doing in order to see to the proper implementation of this act. How many prosecutions have taken place? The small people, of course, should be dealt with very mildly. I agree and I support this measure, but taking the law as it is today without this amendment, it empowers government to deal very effectively. So, As far as the provisions of the law go with the big traders, wholesalers, and profiteers, I would like to know as to how they have dealt with them. How many are in jail today? How many have paid fine? How many have suffered imprisonment? How many licenses have been cancelled as a result of malpractices, corruption, profiteering, and so on, all of which are provided for under this bill. We are entitled to know. Take us into your confidence in regard to this matter. I say from whatever knowledge we have that very few have been prosecuted under this act. If it is so, it is not because our black market trade has suddenly become white market trade or those impious people have suddenly become virtuous with the succession in the office of the food minister by a new man. The next question that I would like to deal with is the paragraph in the President's address relating to the progress made in our economy, in our agricultural sector, in our industrial sector, in our foreign trade, etc. Sir, you were pleased to read out to us a very large list of the achievements of the Congress government during the last this decade and the important targets which have been achieved during the last 10 years of our planned economy. You also mentioned the question of increase in food production, increase in the production of agricultural commodities, etc. Fortunately, sir, here we have in our midst the ex-deputy chairman of the Planning Commission, Shri V.T. Krishnamachari, who has addressed a number of meetings and seminars in New Delhi recently, drawing our attention to the weakness in our agricultural sector. If the press reports are correct, in one seminar he mentioned that even if all the targets of the third 5-year plan are achieved, still at the end of the third 5-year plan period, we may be facing a serious situation regarding the supply of agricultural commodities. He has also expressed the hope that we will be able to exceed the targets which have been fixed for the third 5-year plan. I do not know whether his expectation of exceeding the targets will be fulfilled or not, but it is quite clear that we have not been able to give sufficient attention to the development of the agricultural sector. It has also been stated that development of the agricultural sector is one of the most difficult tasks which have been found difficult both by democratic countries as well as by countries in which total planning is going on. It is all the more reason therefore that we should pay more attention to the agricultural sector so that it may be possible for us to meet our requirements as and when they arise, and the situation which he has foreseen at the end of the third 5-year plan may not materialize. It is no use merely taking refuge behind some of the figures which have been compiled and narrating the progress which has already been achieved. We are happy that some progress has been achieved, but we are anxious that more progress should be there, and for what purpose also certain definite steps will be taken. In this connection, I am also happy to hear what the defense minister said yesterday in one of his public meetings, namely that the government of India is contemplating to create a setup in our villages wherein our panchayats will be functioning more or less on the lines of parliament. Unfortunately, he did not elaborate that point further, and the press has not thrown any more light on what that exactly means. But if it means that the panchayats will be in charge of the resources that are available in the villages, that they will be in a position to determine how best the productive efforts in the villages are to be directed and in what direction determine what targets are to be achieved, and when the production is there and there is a surplus to be exchanged with other centers in the country, that the panchayats will have their say in the matter on what terms this surplus will be exchanged with other centers in the country, then I think a very valuable step forward in the direction of building our economy on a decentralized basis will have been undertaken.